The wolf. He's the archetypal predator, dreaded and successful. Ever since primeval times, man has viewed him as a fear-inspiring creature. To the Middle Ages, and for centuries to come, he was a demon, a beast to be hunted down and killed. Today, however, wolves have become a prime object for behavioral science throughout Europe. From Italy to the Baltic, researchers are fascinated by these animals' amazing abilities.
As wolf biologists, we knew very well that wolves can travel long distances. But we were really thrilled when we monitored wolves moving across Europe in areas that are highly human-dominated.
This is the story of three extraordinary migrating wolves. Slavko covers a distance of more than 1,000 kilometers, from Slovenia across the Austrian Alps well into northern Italy. Slovenian wolf expert Hubert Potočnik follows Slavko's trail all the way to Lasinja National Park near Verona. A second migrating wolf sets off from eastern Germany. Having crossed perilous rivers and roads, Allan finally reaches the border regions of Belarus. His odyssey of 1,500 kilometers is retraced by German biologist Ilka Reinhardt. Ligabue, our third voyager, migrates from Parma in northern Italy to the French Maritime Alps. His trek of 1,000 kilometers is monitored by Italian wolf researcher Francesca Marucco. It's a project to answer one vexing question. What drives single specimens of the European wolf to make such breathtaking and highly dangerous journeys? There were times when wolves were a common appearance throughout Europe, from hot southern climes to the icy regions of the north. But when man settled down and developed crop and livestock farming, he came to see the wolf as an enemy. With the invention of firearms, entire areas were systematically cleared of wolves, forcing the species further and further onto the fringes of the continent. In 1904, they set out to finish off the last wolf on German soil. The male has been active in the Lausitz area, south of Berlin, for 4 years now, much to the displeasure of the local hunting gentry. On February 27th, 18 marksmen and their beaters are determined to get the tiger of Sabrot. To them, it's the beast, a mere poacher, who is preying on their stags, roe deer, and wild boar. This time, the hunters managed to surround the wolf in a forest copse. A 100-mark bounty awaits the man who fires the fatal shot. With the killing of the tiger of Sabrot, the wolf in Germany has become extinct. Roughly 100 years later, photo traps record the first specimens of a new population. Cameras on mobile phones document chance encounters. A gradually rising number of wolves from Eastern and Southern Europe seem to be finding their way through densely populated zones into the heart of the continent. In February 2015, a young forest ranger comes face to face with a pack of wolves on Lüneburg Heath in northwestern Germany.
The return of the wolf to many parts of his historical range in Europe is one of the most exciting facts in the European nature conservation. The reasons for this return are many, but certainly one is fundamental. The wolf is one of the most flexible and adaptable animals that we know and can adapt to many different ecological situations.
Yet filming the shy predators in the wild is nearly impossible. That's why we choose to tell the story of our 3 migrators using stand-ins. From the pack of Hungarian animal trainer Zoltán Horkály, a renowned specialist in the field.
If you want to work with a wolf like this one, the first thing is trust. You have to gain trust with your animals. They have to trust you. And if they trust you and they love you, this way you can work with them.
When working with his wolves, Horkály time and again has to maintain alpha male dominance, especially in extreme situations. But Horkály knows his pack and the distinct abilities of each animal.
We decided that we are going to use Volko as Ligabue in the movie because these scenes, what Ligabue is doing in the movie, is just made for Volko. So he has to pass a highway with lots of traffic, and Volko is really good in that because he has no fear at all from cars and from traffic.
Scientific data provides a precise plot of Ligabue's movements. His story begins in Italy, at a motorway junction near Parma, where on February 24, 2004, the 10-month-old male seems to have lost his way. Ligabue is hit by a car, drags himself off the road, and is found by locals who call the authorities. Biologist Francesca Maruca knows his story well. She takes us to the site where the accident took place in 2004. She meets up with Patrizia Pezzorni, who found the wounded animal.
The car approached from there. The wolf came from the opposite direction. They probably weren't aware of each other. The driver tried to get out of the way as the wolf started to cross the road. But the car ended up hitting the wolf.
Archive footage shows how Ligabue's injured left foreleg is treated by a vet. The relative size of the animal's head and ears is a clear indication that it's a young wolf. Italian biologists sense a rare opportunity. We're on the way to the hut where Ligabue was nursed back to health in Tosco Emiliano National Park in the Apennine Mountains. Francesca wants to know how he behaved after being rescued. She is accompanied by wolf expert Luigi Molinari and by Mario Andreani, the veterinarian who treated Ligabue back then.
So we're there. Mario, was it here?
Just a few steps up there.
Where did you keep him? Was he monitored all day? Regularly?
Yes, once a day.
You can't watch him all the time, but he was always here.
He was in here. When he heard someone coming, he wouldn't make a sound. But if we stayed very quiet and listened outside, we could hear that he was very active, running to and fro and even jumping up the walls.
He wanted out.
Yes, but as soon as the door opened, he just cowered in one corner with his head tucked in.
Genetic tests indicate that Ligabue belongs to a wolf population in the Alto Appennino Modenese Regional Park, about 100 kilometers from here. 2 weeks later, the leg is healed. But before Ligabue is set free again, he's fitted with a GPS transmitter, a first for European wolves.
We scientists are requested to provide data on where wolves move across Europe. And in order to do that, we use this beautiful device. They are radio collars. We put them on animals. These collars use the satellite network to find the location of the animals and then send this data through our computers, where we can reconstruct all the movement of animals over short distance, but also over long distance across Europe.
Combining the GPS data with the results of genetic tests allows scientists to make a fairly precise estimate of Italy's wolf population. While 40 years ago, only around 100 animals had survived in the Abruzzi Mountains, today about 1,500 wolves can be found in Italy again. Most of them have settled in habitats along the Apennine Ridge from Calabria up north to the Alps. The Tosco-Emiliano National Park, south of Parma, is home to 8 wolf packs. This is where, on March 11, 2004, Ligabue is returned to the wild. The park has abundant game, a perfect hunting ground for wolves. Roe and other deer are their preferred prey. But a migrating wolf will even settle for eating a hare to cover his daily diet of 3 to 4 kilograms of meat. Tackling a wild boar, however, is much too risky for a single wolf.
Usually wolves live in packs, so they are never really alone. But these dispersals and the long-distance ones have to risk their life by themselves every day in new territory they don't know. They have to move across roads to predate by themselves, also big animals. They have to take many risks because they have to pass among other packs that they can kill them. So it's really dangerous for them.
4 weeks after his release, Ligabue reaches the hinterlands of La Spezia. His route has led him in the vicinity of human settlements. And obviously, hunger urges him to overcome his natural reclusive instincts. It's on occasions like these that wolves encounter dogs, as they are able to communicate with their tamed relatives and recognize a kindred species. Matings between them are fairly common.
When wolves and dogs meet, we have the mixing of 2 gene pools. One is the wolf, a powerful predator selected by millions of years of natural selection, and the other one is the dog, selected by thousands of years of artificial selections by humans to make it a wonderful companion for us. The result is a problem. We call it hybrids. Could be an animal like this. It's a strange animal. It looks a little bit like a wolf, a little bit like a dog. But these animals can be a big threat to the wolf because they could mean the end of the genetic identity of the wolf like we know it.
But there also are stories of a very different kind of transformation. The legend of the werewolf, or wolfman, has made men's spines tingle ever since. According to local chronicles, in 1589, Peter Stump, a peasant from Epprat, a village on the Lower Rhine, was charged and indicted by the Holy Office, better known as the Inquisition. At night, 50-year-old Stump, the records say, had turned into a werewolf, killing men, pregnant women, and more than a dozen children, including his own son. In a Frankenstein-like hunt, the burghers of Epprat rally and track down the alleged wolfman. The monster escapes, but not before the villagers hack off one of his paws. And when the posse reaches Stump's farm, the story goes, one of his hands is indeed missing. Under torture, he confesses to an insatiable craving for human flesh each time he turned into a werewolf. Stump, who was most probably mentally deranged, ends up being burned at the stake together with his wife and his daughter. Within eyeshot of the cooling towers of a brown coal power station in the Lausitz area, today, wolves still struggle with their age-old image as the incarnation of evil. Although footage of the Lausitz wolves clearly show a picture of peaceful family life. In 1998, the first wolves returned to the very same area where, almost a century ago, the last German wolf had been killed. This is where the story of our second migrator, Allan, begins. Biologist Ilka Reinhardt and her faithful companion Jacques are going to retrace his route. As a natural tracker, the dog is always by her side.
When looking at the geographical distribution of wolves in Germany, we frequently find that the earliest packs quite often turned up at active military training camps.
In 2000, the wolf population in the Lausitz area started to spread northwest into Brandenburg and the forests south of Berlin. In 2007, the first specimen reaches Lower Saxony. Soon, single wolves are being reported around Hamburg and further north in Schleswig-Holstein, too. So far, between 30 and 40 wolf families have settled in various parts of Germany. The distribution of wolves in Germany is well documented. It functions according to an age-old pattern. For instance, young wolves, growing up on the grounds of a near-deserted military training camp, leave their parents when they're between 10 and 22 months old. Usually they'll form a pack of their own not too far away. Allan grew up on this sandy clearing in 2008, but he was going to behave completely differently than his brothers and sisters.
So, this was Allan's nursery. This is where he played with his siblings. It was a litter of 8, so he had lots of companions. This is where they would have spent most of the day. Wolf pups love open spaces to play in, and this is also where they wait for their parents, who come in the evening to feed the pups.
Wildlife filmmaker Sebastian Körner succeeded in bringing home this footage of Allan and his siblings. It's a playful preparation for life later on. There's not the slightest sign that soon after, one of them will answer some mysterious call, set out into the unknown, and thereby provide scientists with data that yields new insights about the reemergence of wolves in Central Europe. To this day, for Ilka Reinhardt, Allan's story lingers on as a highlight of her work at Lupus, the Wolf Research Center in the Upper Lausitz area. Whenever she drives across her wolf country, there are vivid memories of Allan along the way.
There are fresh tracks over there. This is the place where we radio collared Allan on March 13th, 2009.
Back then, Allan was 10 months old and weighed 31 kilograms.
The Federal Agency for Nature Conservation had asked us to collar 6 wolves, and one of those was Allan.
A strong, healthy male, now nearly 1 year old. He's given a general checkup, weighed and measured, before being fitted with a GPS tracking collar.
After 2 years, these pins loosen and detach, so the collar will snap open and simply fall off. He doesn't have to run around with it for the rest of his life. 2 years in the service of science, then he'll be rid of it.
On April 25th, 2009, Allan, all of a sudden, starts out. He leaves his home range and heads northeast. It's a clear case of lupine wanderlust. Guided by a strong migratory instinct, his odyssey begins. That this particular wolf happened to be fitted with a transmitter is an enormous stroke of luck for the scientists. It's the first time in his life that Allan is completely on his own. As with his Italian counterpart, Ligabue, hunting will prove to be one of the major challenges facing him. A fully grown doe would feed him for days. But a single young wolf doesn't stand a chance of bringing down such large prey all by himself. In northern Italy, Ligabue is on the move too, though at first much less resolutely than Allan. He keeps roaming the Tosco-Emiliano National Park for a few weeks, then sets course for the coast, and after about 400 kilometers, he reaches the area around Monte Ebro. 1,700 meters high, it's the second highest peak of the Ligurian Apennines and a known wolf habitat. The GPS plotting data gives a clear picture of his whereabouts at the time.
Yeah, this is the exact point where Ligabue was on the 17th of June of 24, so 11 years ago. And that's a perfect place for wolves. So for sure, he was moving around this area because this ridge is a very cool place for wolves. Usually they use this area to mark, you know, and also this is the corridor, you know, that Ligabue used to move from the Apennine in Parma through this to get to the Alps.
On his way west, Ligabue time and again had to run the gauntlet of human civilization. Roads, fences, motorways, an alien world that would have defied a feebler spirit. The impulse that drove him on must have been immense. Sometimes it takes hours to find a needle's eye. Ligabue uses tunnels and small bridges. Even so, road traffic remains one of the most frequent causes of death for European wolves. It's especially threatening for their migrating specimens. According to studies conducted by the Leibniz Institute for Zoo and Wildlife Research in Berlin, from 2000 to 2015, no less than 77 wolves died just in road accidents in Germany. En route from the Lausitz area into western Poland, Allan is equally forced to cross land shaped by man, past numerous villages and towns. GPS data reveal that he usually sleeps in the daytime and moves at night. After roughly 4 weeks and 500 kilometers, he reaches the Vistula near Marienburg, a major new obstacle. Ilke Reinhardt, with the ever-present Jacques, wants to see for herself where Allan crossed the river. She checks and rechecks the GPS data until she can finally pinpoint the spot.
Here, he was right here.
Cool,
Then he probably took this little path over there. Let's have a closer look.
Gucken wir uns mal an.
But at the moment, Jacques isn't really inclined to wolf tracking.
Jack, kommt man hier
Can we
runter?
get down there? Let's see what that does.
Ob das geht. Sieht doch
It
aus wie
looks
so ein
like a
kleiner
small trail.
Trampelpfad.
So this is the spot where Allan reached the banks of the Vistula in May 2009. The scientist keeps asking herself what Allan might have had in mind in moments like that.
It's as if they have a kind of inner motor. I want to get from A to, well, they don't really know where B is. They don't have any GPS. Nevertheless, they're bent on getting there. Then all of a sudden, there is this huge river, yet something tells them I must get across it no matter what.
Ich muss darüber.
On May 17th, Allan braves the river. It's 400 meters wide at this spot. Wolves are surprisingly good swimmers. Once across, an impulse drives Allan on further eastward. He definitely seems to have a kind of route in his mind, but a wolf's inner compass is still a mystery to scientists. Now it's Ilke's turn, and even Jacques seems to enjoy the ride.
Waves! Yes, that's exciting, isn't it?
Their skipper turns out to be an experienced wolf spotter.
Wolves turn up here now and then, even in packs. One time I saw 3 or 4 of them, a mother with her pups.
The GPS data show that 4 hours after the crossing, Allan is already 13 kilometers further east. He's now moving across Masuria, a typical Polish agrarian landscape. A wolf pack out for prey will always concentrate on the easiest victim. These sheep are out of reach for Allan. The electric fence is too high and solidly embedded. Wolves instinctively shy away from human beings. Centuries of being hunted down have taught them to avoid their greatest foe. Yet persistent hunger may force them to run risks and to look all over for something to eat. Allan moves on, covering some 500 kilometers in 5 weeks, from the Vistula to northeastern Poland. His GPS data record that in June 2009, he spent a night on the outskirts of a town called Elk.
It seems like he stood here and then trotted along there. There's a house some 30 meters in front of us. And my guess is that he kept on going parallel to the railroad tracks away from the town in that direction. Thrilling.
Spannend.
Eastern Poland may be the largest wolf habitat of the country, yet encounters are rare.
Grandmother told us that she saw a wolf. That was about a year ago. She had been visiting us and was on her way home when she turned around and was horrified. A wolf was standing there. At least, that's what she said.
The sight of a wolf still causes hysteria. Reports of livestock being killed by wolves will inevitably evoke the age-old fear of the wolf as a man-eating beast. Wolf expert Luigi Boitani gives some practical advice.
If you happen to see a wolf in a forest, keep calm, keep quiet. You are one of those very few lucky people in the world to see a wolf in the wild. But don't run away, because running away is actually sending a signal that you are a potential prey, and maybe the wolf will become interested in following you. Attacking you, very, very unlikely. Wolves have been attacking humans maybe 4 or 5 times in the last 100 years, all over the world, so it's a very unlikely event. They are curious animals. They come close to village just to find out what's going on.
By now, Ligabue's feats as a long-distance migrator have electrified Italian wolf researchers. His wanderings are supplying initial data for a scientific study that aims to explore the re-emergence of the wolf in Central Europe. In June 2004, Ligabue moved on. He left the Apennine Ridge, crossed the Po Basin, and headed northwest towards the Maritime Alps. Having migrated a total of almost 900 kilometers, the young male now reaches Mercantour National Park in the southeastern corner of France.
After all the way through the Apennines and passing Cuneo, finally Ligabue arrived to France. That was on the 8th of October 2004. This is the western part he touched in the Alps.
It's the first time that the exact route of a single wolf migrating from Italy to France in search of a territory of its own could be documented almost step by step. By the end of the 19th century, the wolf had become nearly extinct in France. In 1979, the state passed a protection law. 13 years later, the first migrators from Italy were reported in the French Alps. Meanwhile, about 30 wolf families are living in several parts of the country. Apart from the Alps, they've found habitats in the Pyrenees, the Central Massif, and even as far north as the Vosges Mountains and the Ardennes. In the border region between France and Italy, Italian filmmaker Raffaele Cerbetto was lucky enough to capture an entire wolf pack on film, a sensation. While conservationists rejoice, local farmers take a less friendly view. It didn't take long for alpine wolves to learn that the numerous flocks of sheep were mostly unprotected and thus proved easy prey. In 2012 alone, they killed more than 5,000 sheep. As a consequence, France once again permits selected wolves to be shot, while sheep farmers who want to claim damages are obliged to step up protective measures. Jean-Pierre Cavallo's helpers may be hardly recognizable among their wards, yet these so-called livestock guardian dogs are highly effective escorts.
Wolves returned to the Alps in 1992, so I went to Italy to look for some Maremma guardian dogs from the Abruzzi. They are working dogs, and they are still with my flocks.
Man's use of livestock guardian dogs can be traced back to as early as 2200 BC. They are raised in the midst of the flocks they are intended to protect. So it's only natural that a close relationship evolves between dog and livestock. The consequence of this close bond between the two species is that the dogs feel less attached to their human master. Though they acknowledge man's dominance, Otherwise, they tend to keep their distance.
Apparently, these dogs learn to love like we love. They form bonds. You can see quite well how the sheep and the dog sniff each other. Later on, he will take on a protective role. They'll never part. We have 6 guardian dogs for this flock, and each one of them guards 5, 6, or even 10 sheep. They are his sheep. It's like the way we love a little lamb.
Puppies learn the vital details in performing their job from older, more experienced dogs. The effectiveness of their presence is demonstrated by this footage, shot during a nighttime raid by a wolf. As the predator draws nearer, the flock backs away in panic. But in no time, a guardian dog shows up and positions himself between the wolf and his potential prey. It doesn't take long before 2 more dogs back him up. As a rule, their impressive size and barking are enough for the wolf to beat a hasty retreat. It's only as a last resort that the dogs will move into attack. More and more sheep farmers in Europe are reverting to the old ways of protecting their flocks. They know only too well, wolves are nothing to be trifled with. A fact exemplified by the ancient poet Aesopus in his fable about the shepherd boy and the wolf. The boy was bored by his chores and hatched a practical joke. Wolf! Wolf! The wolf is chasing the sheep, he cried out into the valley. All men of the village promptly came running. When they found out that there was no wolf, they went grumbling back down the hill. When a little later there really was a wolf and killed all the sheep, no one turned up. Cry as the boy might. So, nobody believes a liar, even when he tells the truth. It's the old fables and fairy tales which imprint on us the image of the big bad wolf to this day. Reversing this image is an important part of the work of wolf experts all over Europe. Ligabue, all of a sudden, seemed to have seen enough of France and decided to turn back eastward, to Italy.
So, after 4 weeks, we were monitoring Ligabue in this valley. We were following his tracks almost every day. We finally discovered he was not alone. There was somebody else together with him.
Apparently, the long journey was well worth the effort. A female from the Italian population has aroused Ligabue's interest. Genetic material found by the researchers clearly indicates her ancestry. As is common among wolves, Ligabue left his family before reaching sexual maturity. Now he is ready to start a family of his own and actively courts the young she-wolf for several weeks. But shortly before mating, Ligabue's story takes a tragic turn. The territory he and his mate have picked out lies right between the home ranges of 2 other wolf packs. Memories of the events in 2005 are painful for the young scientist. Francesca had been hoping that Ligabue's migration might yield even more data, helping her to find a clue to the yet unsolved mystery of why he of all the wolves in his pack, embarked on such an arduous journey.
So this is the point. This is where we found Ligabue on the 17th of February.
Nobody can tell exactly what happened back then, but all the evidence indicates that the young and unexperienced wolf was killed by members of his own species. Killing intruders is certainly not uncommon among wolves. It's a sad end to a long and dangerous trail. All that Francesca, Maruco, and her colleagues can do is document the dead migrators' remains.
So our first hypothesis was that he was killed by the wolf pack that was next to him. And that's normal among wolves, but it was really a pity because, you know, Ligabue did all this way, like 1,000 kilometers to get here, to bring his genes, and he died just 2 weeks before he was going to reproduce.
Having defied all the perils of human civilization, after 317 days and 1,243 kilometers, Ligabue fell victim to the laws of nature. His German counterpart, Allan, is still heading eastward. He too has already put more than 1,000 kilometers behind him on his odyssey. Will he make the grade and establish a family of his own in a faraway new habitat? And we'll meet a third migrator. Slavko works his way from Slovenia across the Austrian Alps into northern Italy. His story is another fascinating chapter in the history of European wolf research.